When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade.
Welcome back to the Cork Football Podcast. Minor footballers had a mighty win in Newbridge last Sunday. Great day, massive day for Cork football. They had shown great grit and courage there in the Munster final against Kerry, and I think that's why they got such a big following last Sunday, and huge numbers from Cork there. Massive roar when we all through the game actually. And just in fairness, just to comment on the stadium as well, lovely stadium. It's kind of just after getting a revamp, and very, very nice stadium now to watch a game. And to do what the lads did last Sunday was unbelievable, because I was just saying after that, to do that, you don't do that to Tyrone. Not many teams will do that to Tyrone, because they've been around the block, senior, underage. They know how to see games out. I was just saying that you'd often get a team there to come through in minor, maybe no disrespect to maybe a Laois now or a Sligo or someone like that wouldn't be used to big occasions like that, and they might get a lead and you could pull them back, kind of, because they just wouldn't have the experience of going through something like that. But to do that to Tyrone was unbelievable, because they are hard beating. I suppose we didn't play badly at any stage of the game. We did struggle with aspects of our game and with their physicality in the tackle. The ref, in fairness, the ref had a good game. He was letting things go, and that suited Tyrone. But and it kind of took, I think, Tyrone's physicality. It took our boys a bit by surprise. We just kept walking into traps. We were kind of playing, our normal kind of semi-risky kind of football, which is great to see for young fellas like that. So you have to go out and express yourself. But we were getting turned over a lot, and we were under pressure on our kickouts and around the middle of the field. Rory Tuig, he had missed a few frees as well, which was kind of, you know that the Tyrone crowd were watching him, because there was a big jeer when he missed the first free, and I'd say they had him they were watching him, and it was a kind of a lift to them when he missed the first one. Kind of just, I suppose, after the midway point in the first half, there was kind of a 5-point swing. We were playing well enough. We were still making openings, and Joe Miskela went through, and he hit the crossbar, savage shot, and they went down the field. They got a 2-pointer, so it was a 5-point swing, and we just couldn't get the grips with them then after that, and we were down 7 points at half time. We had the wind in the second half, so it was still looked a big uphill task, and it was actually Tyrone then, because they were against the wind, they started carrying ball more, and that seemed to actually suit them. And we just didn't seem to be able to handle it, and we were down 9 points then, and there didn't seem to be any what you'd call a single turning point in the game. Éanna Lynch had a very good block down, all right, about 10 minutes into the second half, but and you couldn't say Tyrone had a meltdown either. We just kept plugging away, doing what we were doing, and eventually it just paid off for us. And I think the key as well was that nobody lost the head. Like you in games like that with young fellas, when you go behind that much, and frustration can seep in, and you can kind of get maybe lazy high tackles or late tackles just out of pure frustration. But there was none of that whatsoever. We just kept playing football, and our subs came in, and they seemed to have an impact, every one of them that came on, and got on top of the middle of the field. And real credit to the boys around the middle there who hadn't been going well, and they would have been kind of expected. Big performances would have been expected of them boys, and things didn't go well for them, but they stayed at it, and they came good in the end, and they finished very strongly. And it was like we flicked a switch, and the confidence just came back into Cork. And I think Tyrone sensed, I actually think they sensed that we were kind of unstoppable, and I'd say they were kind of asking themselves a question: why are these fellas so composed, and we're hammering them? And I think there was almost a sense of inevitability about it. And with 5 minutes to go, I'd say the Tyrone boys would nearly have taken a draw, because it was a real lesson in composure from our fellas. And once we smelt blood, then we really went for it. And it's fierce, credit to Keith and Morris Moore. And it was a real Keith Ricken performance. Like I'd advise anyone to just look up that story he tells about tea and toast, about how to claw back a lead, and it's a very good analogy for how to claw back a lead. So if you want to look that up, but I just think, just in contrast to the hurlers then Saturday, like it was just the enormity of the mountain that they had to climb, and whereas the miners then they chipped away, whereas the hurlers, they kind of wanted to do it all in the one go. And look, there was great scenes after the game, and that's going to give unbelievable energy to Cork football. And look, football is huge among that age cohort, in the county at the moment, and it's, I suppose, I know the word they call it, is it hip or whatever now, because I have a daughter now and she's 18, and so she's going to school in the city, so, and the way they're all connected now with phones and Snapchat and all that, and when she'd be out there with her buddies, and like she'd said that there'd be regularly youngsters coming up to her asking her, "Oh Jesus, your dad does the podcast?" And it's nearly that Cork football is cool now again, like. And I suppose there's this image of kind of the typical Cork football supporter, that he's a kind of a middle-aged man from West Cork or Mid Cork, and driving a Volkswagen Jetta. But I think that's starting to change, and football is starting to capture the imagination now again within the county, and I think that's why the loss to Mayo there in the quarter final was such a pity. Like that, you can imagine now the build up these 2 weeks, if we were facing Loud on Saturday. An awful opportunity missed, but look, we can't do anything about that now. We just have to drive on and get these fellas through as fast as possible, and I don't think we should have any fear of bringing them through. There's a few fellas there on the under 20s and on this minor team, you can see them straight away, and they have the stuff, and we shouldn't be one bit afraid of bringing them through. You can see what Mayo are doing with their young fellas, and it's just, I think they'll be fine if we give them a chance. So that was brilliant, the minors the weekend. I went back to Macroom then last Friday night, to the Division 1 final between Knocknagree and Castlehaven, and a very positive night for Cork football as well. Unbelievable entertainment, 318 to 123. Castlehaven won it, but the real winner on the night was Cork football. It was good crowd there, great quality football, brilliant shooting, physicality, speed, the organisation of the teams, how they were tactically set up, and the venue as well. And that's what I'd say. The pitch was absolutely in unbelievable condition, and Macroom is a great venue for football, and I would nearly go so far as to say I think there should be as many games as possible played there, county championship games, because I think it's the spiritual home of Cork football. I know there's other places now that will probably argue with that, but I think it's something about Macroom, their history, and it's an old ground, a lot of history there, and there's just something about it. I always think a match in Macroom, that there's something special there. But to the match itself, Knocknagree, it was they were kind of making most of the running. They got 5 2-pointers, I think, from play over the 60 minutes. Dennis O'Connor and Owen McSweeney and Michael McSweeney were their main shooters. They seem to be making most of the running, but Castlehaven, as Castlehaven do, they just kept in touch. Mark Collins was unbelievable. He's a class act. He was a very, very classy player. Unlucky that he was at his best with Cork when we weren't at our best, but it was, he was very good. The game got saucy a few times as well. Brian Hurley and Daniel O'Mahony were squaring up to each other there at one stage, and so they were going hammer and tongs. Very physical game, actually. Coming down the stretch, then Knocknagree were up 7 points. They looked in a good, strong position, but Castlehaven never beaten. And obviously, I suppose Knocknagree were the underdogs going back there, and you'd be kind of supporting the underdogs, like to see them doing well. But I was actually when Castlehaven got the goal at the end, you couldn't but just be applaud it, because it was the pass from Collins and Hurley's finished, and the way he turned Daniel O'Mahony, like, it was pure class. So that's a great appetizer now for the county championships, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to get out and to go to the club games, whatever grade, and we make sure we're on that tsunami, because it is coming. And look, another thing, John Fenton Daly there, he was looking after Knocknagree, and you have to take our hat off to him. What a job he has done with Knocknagree to bring them from where they were there, I suppose, 10 years ago. Unbelievable. He must be, whatever magic he has. I suppose, as many people have said, we would love to see him involved with the Cork team at some stage, but I suppose that's up to himself now. But just looking at it from the Cork point of view as well, are there players that were playing last Friday night that would be worth looking at? Definitely. And I'm missing a few now here, but just obviously Michael McSweeney is knocking around the panel, and he played well. I think that he has some injury issues that he's going getting sorted out, as far as I know, but and I think that they're hampering him. So that'd be interesting now to see if he gets that sorted. Will he what he'll do? I'd like to see a bit more pace in him. But no, in fairness, he doesn't. He doesn't in the club game anyway. He doesn't seem to be lacking pace. But Jack O'Neill in from Castlehaven, I thought he looks an impressive player. But the player that caught my eye back there now, and the same in the Senior A final last year, when Knocknagree beat Killamatra, is Garrod Looney, number 5 for Knocknagree. I don't know, sometimes you kind of see a player and they have, whatever it is, they have the cut of an inter-county player. And I think he's the type of fellow now that he would flourish at inter-county. I could be wrong, but what I see in him is that he has the football speed, but he's great body language, and very positive, always on the front foot, plenty talking. He looks like a fellow now that if he got his chance, I think he'd grab it. And he's a guy I'd like to see getting a chance. This is probably going to annoy maybe a few Knocknagree people now, but I'm just going to contrast, as I mentioned, Garrod Looney's body language with Owen McSweeney. Owen McSweeney was kicking 2-pointers for fun now the last night behind, and he was pulling all the strings for Knocknagree. But I always thought that when he was playing with Cork, that, like, it's hard to describe, but it just didn't look that he fully believed in himself, or that he believe that he actually deserved to be there, because I don't think he ever carried himself confidently when he was playing with Cork, and he's a very good shooter, and I think he should have backed himself more when he was playing with Cork, because look, he was never a speed merchant, and in fairness, his work rate and his speed did improve over the years when he was playing. But no, was it something about the culture in the setup at the time that he didn't feel he could shoot? But I think it should be a lesson. Owen McSweeney's scenario now should be a lesson to any up and coming player in the county, like the likes of David Buckley now, or Dara Clifford, or Corbett, or these fellas. Like, if you're in range and you are a shooter, you should be shooting, because you look at what's after happening to Owen McSweeney. He's out of the frame now at the moment, but it looks like he is, and I suppose he'll be wondering forever, why didn't he take more chances and take more risk? And I thought he turned down a lot of shots that he could have taken when he was playing with Cork, for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, it didn't work out for him because he wasn't taking them, and I think it's just a pity, that I would say. But that's just that anyway. And then the last thing I'll get on to is our hurlers. They had a bad loss on Saturday. I'm not actually going to talk about the hurling match or anything like that, but because the Cork Hurling podcast, he did a very detailed analysis there of the game, last week's Inns game, and he's going to be doing a couple more episodes now on possible solutions down the track. So looking forward to them. But I just wanted to address the hurling, as in how it relates to the footballers. No, like, at the end of the day, I'll support anyone in a red jersey. That's my rule, right? And I started following Cork in the 1980s. My first hurling game I went to was up in Limerick in 1984, first round game, and I've been following the hurlers and footballers through the ups and downs throughout the years. I was at the two finals in Thurles in 84, the Munster and All-Ireland final. Back in Killarney in 87, we lost. Just go through it. Mark Foley in 1990, the replay in 91, Jim Cashman and Declan Ryan got hammering in 96 in Páirc Keeve from Limerick, 99 in the Rain, Setanta in 03, Brian Cochran in 04, the Long Grass in 06, and I was as gutted after all of them and elated as I would have been for any of the football games. And I thought the changing moment, I think, came in when the draw and the replay with Clare in 2013. I suppose we'd been down for maybe since 05, and we were 8 years without an All-Ireland. That seems like nothing now, but I think that was gut-wrenching at the time, alright, to lose that. But I think something changed in the county after that, and I would just say, like, I suppose in terms of dual players, like, I saw it was a privilege, like Teddy McLeod, Merson, Dennis Welsh, Sean Oak, when Brian Cochran, when they were, and there's more that I'm forgetting, but the era, the dual player, it kind of ended then. And I suppose, just thinking about it, I think Owen Cadigan was probably our last dual player that you could actually say, and no offence to any of the other guys that have done it since, but I would say he was the last dual player that was of the standard, I think, to be an All-Ireland winning player. He would make any All-Ireland winning team, both hurling and football. So, but I think that there was a very concerning trend started after 2013, and because I think there was the Cork County Board and the hurling set up, they kind of set out to actively poach players from football, and these guys wouldn't have been kind of natural hurlers, they would have been footballers and kind of athletes. And I think at around this time they had this kind of policy. It had the tacit backing of the Cork County Board, and I actually would go so far as to say that there was an attempt to damage football and make it as unattractive as possible to dual players. and there was an appointment made around that time in around football, and I think it had the sole purpose of making football unattractive to dual players, because I think there's a faction inside in the Cork County Board that tried to corral players into hurling, just as thinking that it would be the final push to get us an Ireland hurling championship. Like, you had Aidan Walsh, the Cahillans, there was a big push to get Kieran Sheehan hurling, and this year now they were at it again. Hugh O'Connor, he's played one underage game for Cork in hurling, and he was pulled into the hurling panel this year by Ben O'Connor. Got a couple of runs, I would say, only for him, making the switch over. I don't think he'd have seen any game time this year, because it would have been, like, if he had made the choice hurling over football this year and got no game time, it would have been a very, very bad advertisement for fellas making the switch. So I actually think that's why he got the runs, because when it came down to it, he was nowhere near coming on last Saturday. And then you had the attempt to get Tommy Welch away from the footballers as well onto the hurling. And I'd just ask the question, where's all this got us? And I think worse again, it has been given a free pass by basically all of us. And I think there has been huge disrespect shown to football from a cohort within the county and within the Cork County Board. And I would go so far as to say that there is a cohort in the county that actively resent the resources and the funding that go into football in the county. And I think Donald Cusack let the cat out of the bag last Saturday when he said he started complaining about the 2-point arc being on the field in Croke Park for the hurling game. And like, what nonsense. Like imagine if a football analyst came out and started complaining about the 65-metre line being on the field for a football game. I just think it betrayed his and a lot more people's true feelings toward football. And I just asked the question again, where has all this got us? Hasn't got us over the line in hurling anyway, and it has damaged football. And look, I think that the hurling fraternity, I don't like using that word because I see us all as one, but I think we'd be better off focusing on unearthing and developing hurlers. And I just want to make it clear as well, just in case anyone picks it up wrong, I'm not denigrating Damien Cahalane one bit. I have unbelievable respect for what he has done. He has made himself into a very, very good hurler. I remember when he started out, like, it didn't look like that he'd be still playing now, like, but he has made himself into a very good hurler. And I go so far as to say, like, if there's probably 80 players playing senior for Cork between both codes, training, and I think if every one of them applied themselves with the intensity and the dedication that Damien Cahalane has done, I would say we'd be winning the double every year. But I think the worst thing about all this is how it actually seeped down into the supporters as well. And I think there was kind of a permission given to some supporters they saw that they had permission to kind of denigrate the footballers. And we were seeing walkouts there at games, double headers, and I actually witnessed a kind of, it was not a nice thing to witness there last year. We played a double header there in the league, played Kilkenny in the hurling first, and with Roscommon in the football after. And but 10 or 15 minutes into the football game, there was these two fellas sitting in front of me, and they had young fellas with them. And about 10 minutes, a quarter an hour into the football game, we weren't going well. And they had this performative kind of walkout from the football game, and this, they had to make it known to everyone that they weren't going watching this rubbish. And I didn't, it was sickening to see it. But like, these fellas, like, and the thing about this is that they'll drop the hurlers as fast as anything, if when they're not going well. And I actually call these fellas they're kind of the "it wouldn't be held without me" brigade, like, and they're like clones of each other, and you'll see them up around Thurles there, at hurling matches, and they'll be strutting around, and they'll have the shorts on and the jumper over the shoulders and the sunglasses on the head, and they're just complete bandwagoners. And these same fellas know, like, they'd have been 15 years ago, they'd have been all Raj and Paulie and Dunners when they were following Munster rugby. And, absolute, we actually don't want these guys, because they're no good to us. And what sickens me is how the Cork County Board have actually allowed this to happen. And I would go so far as to say that they've actively promoted it. And what I would say as well just is, I do not, and I'd hate to see any overtures now made towards Brian Hayes to kind of switch over to the football. I heard people saying there last week that he'd have a better chance now winning a football All-Ireland than a hurling All-Ireland. But I'd hate to see that, because if that's what the man wants to do. But I'd actually be torn if I heard he was doing it now, because I'd love to see him playing football for Cork, but I'd be torn, because if it damaged the hurling, I wouldn't. I'd be very torn on if I heard that was going to happen. But I just think the whole thing is it's arrogance from a cohort within the county, and I think that's the arrogance that people outside the county actually detect and are giving all of us a bad name. There is a cohort following Cork GAA that they are giving us a bad name, and so look, I hope we won't see any more of it. Hopefully we've learnt our lesson, and that both codes can drive on, and we won't have any more of this, trying to pull players away from one code over to the other. I know young fellas, when they're younger, they'll make their choice, and whatever they go through with, I'm more than happy, as long as they're wearing the red jersey. That's what it's all about. So look, I let that rant there now. County Championship is starting shortly, and it should be a great championship in all grades, but especially the senior now, because there's going to be a lot of contenders. So you've 5-6 clubs there, I think, that would be fancying their chances of definitely making a final, and anything could happen after that. So I just say to people again, get out and support it, and hopefully it'll be a great county championship. So look, I leave it there, and thanks again for listening, and God bless.